recording, because yeah, that's if you don't want to see, if you don't want to be part of that, then we'll just read out your message, then just send a message in the chat. Okay, game.
Okay, so just to start off, a little bit more introduction in line with our theme. So we're just gonna start with introducing us, the community advocates of Friends of Figma Philippines. So I mentioned earlier that I'm Red Rivera. I'm currently a lead product designer in Talino Venture Labs. But because this is a job hunt and we experienced a job hunt, that role will soon change. And I've been using Figma since 2019, and I'm happy to share how my job hunting went the past month. So, passing it on to you, Chi.
Okay, thanks, Red. All right. So yes, I'm Chi. I'm a right now currently a UX design specialist at Home Credit Philippines, and I've been using Figma personally since like 2016, 2017. Back when it was still not as big as it is now, and people were still using Sketch and XD and other things. Photoshop, maybe, like that was the near end of the Photoshop era. But yeah, so, and related to the job hunt with our topic right now. So, I'm just newly hired. I just joined the company this month. So, I will have a lot of things to share because I'm just fresh out. I'm at the I'm at the post job hunt stage. So, the things are still fresh in my mind. So, yes, that's me. Passing it on to you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Eric from the channel, or Eric. Currently a UI designer at Paymongo, handling for the Paymongo dashboard and design system. And yeah, same with G and Red. I'm also looking for new work. So mostly I'm on job hunting. Yeah, that's it. And I'm also user of Figma since 2017. Yeah, that's looking forward for this event.
Guys, if you'd like to share in the chat, where are you in your journeys? If you're currently looking for a job, or how long you've been using Figma, we'd love to see that in the comments. But just to set the tone a little bit, when you signed up for this event, we asked like questions on where are you in your journey, what roles are you looking for, and a lot of the people that we saw who signed up are actually currently employed. So majority of them, 31 attendees, are currently employed. 14 are interested in shifting their career to design. 13 are in between jobs right now, they're currently resting, and 8 are still in school and exploring their options after they graduate. Besides that, we found that most of the people are interested in finding either junior roles or mid-level roles. So in regards to that, I think the three of us are capable of answering those questions. But we also saw that 21 people are interested in senior roles, which is those are the roles we are looking for, or we were looking for. And then 8 people were looking for managerial roles. So given that context, I guess a lot of our experience will really focus on maybe junior to senior job hunting tips, but we'll do our best to also provide um, some things we picked up on the way for managerial roles. Okay, so the way that we set up this conversation is really based on 4 steps. So we identified 4 steps in the job hunt process. Namely, there's the preparation. What are the things you need to prepare? There's the application. Um, and then there is the hiring process itself. And then the negotiation. I think a lot of people forget about the negotiation part, where someone has given you an offer, but how do you make sure that you really campaign for yourself? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So if you can go in the chat and see which part of the conversation you're interested in. Again, there's preparation, there's your resume, there's your portfolio. Just really preparing your presentation wise once you go to a company. um, is it the application part? Where do you look for jobs? How do you discern a good job from a bad job? the hiring process, what to expect from each stage, what's a design challenge, what's a whiteboarding challenge, how do you interview, or the negotiation part. How do you play the game, lol. So we'd be interested to see that in the chat. So because we're going through this chronologically, we're gonna start with preparation. So um, the first question really is, since we all went or are going through a job hunt, my question for Chi and Eric, but I'll answer first, is what did you do to prepare for your job hunt? So personally, I prepared several things. So there's the resume. I really focused on that. There's also the portfolio, namely the portfolio of my website and the portfolio that you present during the interview. I also made sure to really prepare my LinkedIn. That's the medium I chose to really show off my professional skills. And also, I used my network in like, is there, do you have an opening there? Do you have a job? You might know someone looking for a product designer. So those are the things I really focused on in my job hunt. And they were effective because in 1 month, maybe in 3 weeks, I was able to land a role that I was very happy with. Um, so that's me. What about you, Chi?
All right. Okay. So on my what I prepared. So for context first on how I got to looking for a job. I had to take a break for a bit for personal reasons. And during that time, I was also aware that in doing so, I would need to look for a job like afterwards, like soon. So because well, my savings was not enough. So that's also like another thing I guess that you will need to take note of if you're going through being in between jobs. Make sure that your savings is okay. And if it's not, then there are a lot of other ways that you can approach those things, but if ever you are currently employed and you do want to take a break, it is okay, like it is not bad to do it, but realistically speaking, just also be mindful about your lifestyle changes, the things that you need to take note of while you're looking for like a job. You need to also be smart about it. So as a context for me, during that time I did start with fixing my resume. I do already have it like, prepared because I'm the type of person that graduate that generally updates it every now and then. Because that's a good practice as well, to have it ready just in case you need to suddenly apply. And there are some formats already, like some templates already available online that can be, and we can share it later in the chat, links to that, so that you can also make use of these templates, because you don't also have to think so much about the resume in so far as making it look super duper pretty, quote unquote, because the important thing there is the actual content. And um that's more that has more weight than like make that than all of the design visual portions of it. So I had my resume already ready. It's a just a Google Doc. And then eventually that's when I started fixing my portfolio. That took a while because I was also going through imposter syndrome with my own skills. I was doubting myself, and I am thankfully I have a good support system with my friends and close with loved ones. So eventually I got through those with also their help, like both emotionally and also like technically with like through the process of fixing my portfolio. So eventually I did have that. But when I joined, or rather, yeah, when I was going through the process now of interviewing, it wasn't some the portfolio wasn't something I used. So it was really just my resume, because I also, just like what Red said, I also made use of my contacts, of my networks. That's where I also found my current job. So at least for that portion, I just used whatever I had on my plate. And if you don't have those right now, then maybe those are the things that you can look for in attaining. So that's sorry. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, similar with you and Red. And mostly I focus on the resume first. And second one is the case study or the portfolio part, which is depends on you on it's either you will code or doing front end or doing a web flow, or you can use like Notion or even Figma. Actually, I'm one of using Figma that time, but sometimes I need to prepare at least 2 to 3 test project to showcase since most of the time I don't want to show all the projects since it depends on the company that you want to apply, and you want to make sure that the industry or the project that you want to showcase is similar or almost aligned with your goal in the company that you want to enter. And second one is the cover letter. And I know some people uh, don't focus on cover letter, but it can help you especially to showcase your skill and your talent. And lastly, is the connection, which is I asked part of my friend, college, and even my client before. Yeah, that's it on my end.
All
Pass
right,
the mic.
thanks, Chi and Eric. So one of the questions that we also have prepared is really what are resume do's and don'ts. So all of us we mentioned that the resume was really important for us in our job hunting guide. I'm the same as Chi in that I like to update it every now and then. Um, but I did. If I look back at my first resume, oh my goodness, I cringe so much because
I
if you
understand.
really look into like are the resume do's and don'ts, it's kind of overwhelming to do it all in one go. So I really recommend that
Yeah.
people check on their resume every now and then because as designers, what we want to do is to make it look nice, right? But
Mm.
really, making a resume look nice is secondary because the most important part of the resume is really showing what you can do, what you can put on the table for the company that you're applying for. So there's a specific format that I follow whenever I like phrase anything in my resume. Specifically, it's following um, the format of verb or action word, and then the what they call this, the
The thing, the thing
what
that
did
you
you
did,
do, like the act, I would say, and
or the
then what
project.
was the impact. So hold on. So action verb, the tap. So overhauled website and redesigned landing page. So the redesigned landing page is like the task or project that you did. Then the next part would be which led to 30% increase in conversion. So that's kind of like a more um, structured way of really writing down what to put in your resume. It's not just a matter of writing down the responsibilities. Oh, thanks, Chi. It's not just a matter of like putting designed screens for XYZ, whatever. It's not a matter of putting the responsibilities you did. It's really mostly putting um, what you did that gave impact. That's the important part, really. It's difficult to really look for the quantifiable measurement of what you did. But I really searched high and low for where I could find like measurement of success because that's the thing that clicks for people that, oh wow, that's as this person, let's interview her. um Besides that, another tip is don't oh my god, don't put like a that status bar with
The
the
ano, progress bar.
don't put a progress bar. No one understands what that means. It's completely
Yeah.
subjective. It's better if you just list down the tools that you can use. And also, um, if you're applying for a job that has a lot of applicants, there's this thing where they use a scanner really in like reading everything that's on your resume. So if you use a very creative resume, it might not be able to scan what exactly you put there. Um, thankfully I found a way to still use Figma so I can still style it the way I want because I couldn't bring myself to just use a Google format. I wanted it to look nice. A workaround that I found for you to be able to still have a scannable resume is to um separate bullets really by text. Like if bullet point 1 and 2 needs to be in, cannot be in one, otherwise they will not be readable. So I guess those are some very high level general tips that I think gave me a lot of ROI when it came to applying for jobs. Do you guys have anything to add for resume do's or don'ts?
For me, well, just to answer the question, I'll just also say it out loud. Someone joked Chat GPT for cover letter in chat, Braille chat joke that. But honestly, it helps. Especially if you're the type of person that sometimes forgets to words. Like they just like you can't say you can't look for, the synonym of what is designed, created, built, put together with like list all of that. Technology is here, just use it, but also use it well and use it properly. Now don't just go, okay, can you write this for me and then send it, because of course there's still going to be the human element. It's still stupid enough, it's still do not actually know what works for your context, so it still has to be molded by you. It helps at the start just to get some ideas coming out, but it's not gonna be what you give. That's not the so yes, that's just what I wanted to say about that. Eric, do you have something to
Yeah,
for that?
almost same with you. I think one of my challenges that for resume is I'm also looking for other designer resumes, and it helps to refine the other. Like one thing I learned is I always put key projects on every role or every company that I entered, since they know what you're doing in that company. But yeah, overall, it's almost same.
I want to also Nico just chatted or just sent in the chat. The XYZ formula really works, same as the one mentioned by Red. Describe what you achieved, then describe how the achievement was measured, and then describe what you did. So example, improved case handling page by improving the information architecture, which increased user productivity by 30%. Please never copy and paste lines from the job description you were given. Yes, to say it's good to use it as reference, but not to copy and paste it exactly as you see it, because it will be halata. It will be obvious that you just did that, and that's not a good sign for for recruiters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But since we went to the topic of cover letters, in my job search, I never actually used a cover letter. Anytime a company would ask for a cover letter, I just, oh
Don't
no.
apply.
At that time, I didn't think of using chat GPT. I don't know. I wasn't comfortable yet, but now that I use chat GPT to like as my drafts, it is a lot smarter to use it if companies really insist for it. But there are still companies that don't really ask for that cover letter anymore. So um, that's my perspective on it. But do you have anything else to add, Chi and Eric?
Yeah, for me, cover letter will help. Yeah, for the applying, but I think it's not required from the some company. Mm. Even in most of the companies, I think either remote or outside of the Philippines. But in the Philippines, I experienced they don't require cover letter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't really make a cover letter when I submit. I usually apply through application boards now, like LinkedIn or Glassdoor. Uh, where are where else? Or the um company made forms where they just ask you specific questions. But I haven't really reached out to someone with a cold email. Though I know that that does work. Just having a generic response, at least for on your end, just having your own words, or rather your own accomplishments put into words, and sent to someone that you think you could work for them. Some people do actually do that. I'm not that kapal ng mukha. I'm not that confident in myself to do that. So I trust the forms. That's why that's why I'm there. But if you're the kind of person who wants to just really try reach out, like go to that dream company and be like, "Hey, I want to work for you." But of course in a very professional. Go for it because you'll never know until you try. And the worst that can happen is that you get ignored. But at the very least you can say that you did try to apply or to reach out, and you put, yeah. And just to read what Nico said in chat, for the cover letter, it's good to reference specific lines from the job description and relate it to your experience. So yeah, connecting it to what Nico said in earlier, it is good as a reference, but it's better if you connect it to something that you've actually done. And examples are really great here. And I just remembered what Red was saying about like looking for your impact. This is also a good thing to do if you're someone who's already like within jobs, and you're looking for another job and you have some experience. Try to look for the impact that you have done within the team or the company or the project that you're working on. And you can get this from asking your boss, your current boss, or your teammate some questions. What did I do good? What can I improve on? Stuff like that. Just have a conversation with your office mates, with your teammates. That should be fine. And can do that in privately, so it could also be like very catered to you. You shouldn't be shy in asking for feedback like that. And what do you call this, you could also measure it yourself if it's something that you can measure, like for example page views, like the like in marketing, if they have like these presentations that they announce, this is the trajectory and stuff like that. Take notes because you do have some impact there. If you don't, find ways to make sure that your work does affect those things. And that's where I think OKRs, KPIs, goal setting stuff within the company actually helps out. But if you're starting out, then I guess this doesn't necessarily apply to you. But at the very least, if you have some skills that you have built out throughout your previous experiences, like if you're coming from another job, you could still look at that and look for the impact that you've done specific to the skill that you were honing. That's still valuable. Like just because it's not design related doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's still valuable. It's still skills that other designers don't necessarily do because you have that skill as someone coming from another background. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. Okay.
Thank you, Chi. One last thing about resume preparation: never delete. Just have your master file. Anytime you write anything down, just put it in your master file, and then just keep all of your revisions. And then when you do submit your resume, select which items you think is most relevant to the role, and then submit that one. Sometimes, yeah, you have different versions of the same resume. But you really see, you can see like which resume do companies react to the most. My resume went through several iterations, so yeah, never delete. um, all right. So that is for resumes and cover letters. Another question now that we're going to answer is, what are platforms you use to showcase your professional skills? So, what do I mean by that? A lot of people have their own preferences. Maybe they have a personal website, that's what I use, or they have LinkedIn, that's also what I use. Others, they have websites such as Notion. They use bento.me to compile everything that they have. They have read.cv. There are several ways that you can promote yourself online. For my personal use, I have LinkedIn. I like to use LinkedIn for professional clout chasing. I like to call it like Even though it's so embarrassing to like, oh my god, I have to post this. It's kind of like a muscle that I felt like I needed to build to really um, promote to people that, hey, I did this event or I did this for work, this that, and it really helps because sometimes recruiters actually reach out to you. So one of the jobs that I was applying for, I applied because the recruiter reached out to me directly. So essentially the job came to me. I ended up not accepting the role, but when I was seeing their compensation package and like what they were asking for, it was definitely up my alley and definitely a higher salary package than I ever expected. So I feel like if you have LinkedIn and you're not utilizing it, I feel like it's a really powerful tool because even the job that I applied for and they accepted me, I applied through them via LinkedIn. And there are several ways that you can use LinkedIn. Maybe you reach out to people in the company you want. I also did that. Or you use LinkedIn Premium for a month so you can see some additional stats. I really like that.
Is
Um, and
free trial for like randomly
one
it pops up even if you've actually like done it in the past, it still comes up every now and then.
yeah,
It's
so
helpful.
I had that for a while and I was like, I'm gonna use you one day. And when I did, yes, I made the most of it. And then as for website, I decided to tweak it a little bit just to update it to be more aesthetically pleasing and also have my case studies. They're a little bit outdated because my more recent case study that I can present is kind of more confidential. So I only present it during the interview process itself. Something new that I added to to my personal website are like a list of events that I either spoke in or organized, just to showcase that I'm active in the design community. I like to give back and things like that. And it stood out when the person hiring me was selling me essentially to their CEO and the rest of the team. She mentioned that I'm very active in organizing design events. So it worked out. Um, so it's really up to you on how you want to personalize how you present yourself. But for me, LinkedIn is really for clout chasing. That's like that's how I phrase it.
It's
And
not
then,
wrong.
well, it's not wrong. You comment, you share, and then your personal website is for you to be free on how you want to express yourself. So that's for me. So what about for you, Eric or Chi?
Eric.
Yeah, I think for the website, if you're not confident or totally NDA, you can use like password protected or some other site like Notion. You can try it, and at least you can send the URL on the private or in the recruiter. And also one thing I discover now is the bento.me and read.cb. On the read.cb, you can also create an case study or portfolio under your experience or work experience. Yeah, you can try it by visiting RedCB. That, yeah, gotcha.
So on this, I will agree. LinkedIn is very helpful, at least just to have your professional experience. Like, I also agree. It is a cloud chasing platform. It's no better than Twitter, I guess. Like for other people, they use Twitter and go slide in the DMs the way the meme also goes. But then to actual professionals online, and sometimes that does get jobs. Like I used to work with someone who did literally do that with one of our co-founders and eventually became a developer in our team. So yeah, the main thing is really to be out there and to also be able to showcase what you have. On the note of having an NDA, or if you're not really the type of person who is, public facing, or you want to be out there, but you still want to have something prepared, a password protected file is really like very important or actually very helpful. And you can also just literally add this work is confidential, please do not share. That that can already cover it for you. And you won't, once you start preparing it, once you start sharing it, people should generally understand that they shouldn't post that out online or something. But yeah, for me, I do have a website. I'm already in the industry for like a while, but this is the first time I think that I actually did make some case studies. So for the longest time, I've really relied on referrals and my network to get to jobs. But then now I realized that it's also important. It's more of a for me thing, so that I have a list of my past accomplishments, to be able to look back and, oh, I did that thing, and this is what happened afterwards. These were the learnings that I did afterwards, and stuff like that. It's more, I use it more as a, like a personal diary, but just written in a professional way, so that if in case some recruiter needs to see it, or some person that's looking for someone like me, or just a designer to hire, sees it, then it would give them some insight on how I work, how my process goes. And that is helpful. I'm just not that finished yet with that part. So I do have a private portfolio that I like. It's a in presentation mode. It's made in Figma, and that's the one that I just refined. The one, if you see my website online, I'm not gonna type it in the chat, but if you see my website online, it kind of looks empty or incomplete. So yeah, that's something I also do have to work on. If you see Red's website though, it's really nice. It's really. I think it's built on Webflow, right? It's
Yeah, I
built on
use
Webflow,
Webflow.
yeah.
It's a strategic choice to do it on Webflow, so they can see that I can build sites on
Also
Webflow.
build, yeah, because
Interesting.
that's also like the thing that I would do before. I would build my own websites because I'm also a front end developer, or a web designer. I don't know what the people call the front end devs now, but I haven't been coding for like 2 years now, so I don't know anymore what the the scene is. But that's what I used to do. I would code my website to also showcase, hey, I can also do this, while also showing all of the stuff that I've done as a designer. So yeah.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, all right. So I guess we talked about where you should show yourself, sell yourself. Now let's
Sellers.
talk about the content. So this is like a lot of questions here regarding portfolios now. Um, so we have two portfolio questions currently in the Q&A. Number one from Marie. How did you get over the imposter syndrome and kickstart fixing your portfolio? The second question, how do you prep the portfolio artworks when you're super new in the industry? Let me share my experience on how I worked on my portfolio. When I was super new to the industry, I only really joined in 2020. My portfolio was mostly on Behance and was a lot of the social media graphic design work that I was doing. So I still included that because that's what I have. And what I used to beef up my portfolio was volunteer works that I did that was more focused on the roles that I wanted, in particular UX design already. Um, and so regarding on how to for me get over imposter syndrome, I think it's also a matter of um, talking with people who you've worked with, because they see how you work and they will tell you great things most of the time. Anytime you like, hey, how is it working with me? I remember I had a feedback form to my colleagues on how I worked, and I was really scared on what they would type. But it turned out that they just gave me compliments, or if there was something I needed to work on, they didn't phrase it in a negative way at all. In fact, it just made me more confident as a designer. In particular, they were talking about my communication skills. So for any career shifters in the chat, I was not trained to be a designer in college. I'm actually like a speech communication major. So it turned out that, the thing that I felt the most insecure over, in particular, my lack of visual design skills, perhaps, did not hinder me as a designer, because my skill in being a communicator was really helpful in showing how I work with others. So, other parts of like a portfolio, having a portfolio is also like a matter of thinking, UXing your work, because a person will look at your, okay, admittedly, my case studies are not the best. I just wrote it because I needed something at the time, and they're still there. But the best practice is really thinking of, okay, as a hiring manager, I'm looking at your portfolio. I won't really read every single paragraph, so it would be nice to have everything in bullet forms or really shortened, and have like, in particular, I think what I was looking for when I was hiring for someone was, what was your role in that project? What did you do? Because a lot of the times I see in those portfolios there are group projects. So I'm more interested in like, what did you do in particular, and say how you did it and how it affected the project. Um, I guess in Filipino, wag ka nang mahiya. In English, don't be shy.
Yeah.
I guess it's a little weird to type out what you did exactly, but really fighting that imposter syndrome and campaigning for yourself is a muscle to train. It's really hard, but it's worth it when you're able to do it well. So for Chi and Eric.
Okay. Yes. I'll start first with the question that was also directed to me about the imposter syndrome and how I got over it and eventually kickstart and fixing my portfolio. So yeah, that was a really hard time. I was looking at my work. Everyone around me, at least when I would talk to them, would tell me, "Hey, you do like really good at in my case was design systems, and also I guess UI design. That was my skill set." But at the time, I really would look at my work and I could only see the wrong things, the things I could have done better, the things that I knew I didn't get to do. Like it was hard to get over, but it's doable. But that time it was really sabi ko na lang din, like suwang-suwa na ako like I didn't want to look at my work, as in I was going through a rough time as well, like personally, and I was also trying to force myself into like working on. I also was pressured because I was also thinking about, yeah, financially, like I needed to get the job soon. Like that was the thought process. But at the same time, it was also like, my God, like I know I need the portfolio. And there were actually some interviews that I went through and I know I failed because one, I didn't have a proper portfolio prepared. And two, because while I did have something prepared, I didn't present it properly. So that was like a crushing feat to me, because while the people, the hiring managers or the recruiters weren't necessarily telling me these directly, I could see it in their faces. I could hear it from their responses, and I eventually got the email about, we will not proceed with your application. That happens a lot. That will happen so much more than getting an acceptance, because you're trying to do is get that one yes from a lot of no's. So that's something that you also just have to accept is part of the game, part of the process, and it is hard. You don't have to sugarcoat it. It is sometimes difficult, and it's also good to sometimes step back and take a break and just not think about the thing that your yeah, for example, your portfolio, your resume, if that's putting unneeded pressure on you. The thing that I actually did, just to answer back, go back to answering the question, is I did take a break. As in there would be weeks that there would be a week that I will just be playing a game or playing games, going out with friends or just talking with friends, doing stuff that I like doing and enjoying my life in general, because that was also a very low point in my life. And the thing that you just have to remember is, so there's the worry about getting too carried away with resting and then not being able to go back. That's the thing. That's why you have to time box yourself as well, or like maybe have some ways to check in on yourself as well after, after a few days. And that also works if you're also the type that procrastinates. Um this is a tip that was given to me by friends, and also I think this was given to them as a tip by their therapist. So like, it comes from reputable sources, I would like to say. Or just, it also like from my it does work. Just if you want to try and do something but you don't have the motivation to do it, example in your portfolio, try like 15 minutes, just look at it and then just do something even if you don't really feel like doing it. If it still doesn't feel right for you, if you're like really not, like, check in on your emotions as well. If you're really not feeling it, it's fine. Let it go, and then just take a break for like an hour or maybe two or maybe a day, and then go back to it again. Sleep on it. You will feel better, at least. Like, I would like to say that that usually helps. Sometimes it doesn't. At that point, that's when you ask for a friend. That's when you call a friend. That's when you go out, touch grass, literally, figuratively, wherever. Just have a change of environment, and then you'll have a change of heart, change of mind, because you're not going to be always in that mindset all the time. If you fixate on it too much, that's like the best time for you to actually go the opposite direction, or just stop and then get back to it later. So yeah, that's my answer to the question. Okay. Eric.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
think that one thing I share and I learned with other is they something said like build your MVP portfolio. Like shorten the way you do it. Like instead of building whole case study, just give a context, give the problem and give the solution and key learning. That's it. And most of the rest are visuals. Yeah, one thing that I can share with you, imposter syndrome in building the portfolio. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Um,
I guess, sorry, just to add for the visual part, sometimes it's also hard to like think about what you're supposed to be putting together, put in your portfolio, and that's fine. Try writing first. Like, try writing an outline of your portfolio. That's never going to be the final thing, because as a designer, usually portfolios are off with visual designs, with visual aspects, but it helps to start it with something structured in mind, like with a structure in mind. So like you're building a house, you need to have a blueprint first before you get your actual materials and then put together the things, and you can build it bit by bit. And you also don't have to finish everything all in one sitting. You can just like, that's
yeah.
why also the habit of updating your resume throughout the years and not in one go. Red did say earlier, it is overwhelming. It is overwhelming. That's why you do it in chunks. You give your future self a pat in the back, and you're giving them a less harder time in this particular thing that we have to do every so often. So help yourself, do it
Mm.
every now and then. Yeah, just wanted
Yeah.
to add that.
Also, I think one of the pain points that I see before is I focus a lot or I focus more on 4 or 5. Today I learned that at least 2 projects or 2 features that I worked at is beneficial for, and since it's hard to cover all 5 projects and then the recruiter did not say that all. So just focus at least 2 projects and that's it. Try to apply or try to look other.
Oh, yeah. I also want to add that if you feel that maybe your designs don't look so well, like me, I know I struggled with having nice visuals in my portfolio. In the case study that I prepared, the person interviewing me really said, yeah, I can see that you're lacking in visual design skills. So I was like, oh,
My
thanks for
God.
being so honest. But but he said that I was really good at presenting it. And then he asked me a question like, okay, now that I was also honest that it had been a while since I had worked on it, so I improved. So he asked me a question. All right, so what are things you'd change if you could go back and do it again? And then I gave a list of things that I could do again, and he was nodding like, oh yeah, that's nice. And eventually, it turned out well. So even if you feel like, oh no, they're going to comment on this, oh no, you can always twist the story. You can always put it back in your favor that, yes, this is what I made at that time, but because of this experience, I learned that next time I should do XYZ. So your case studies don't have to be perfect at all. They just need to show your growth as a designer. What did you learn from doing this project? I think that's really what people are looking for when you're presenting, and really having like that structure, that storytelling, that when you're walking someone through it, when you're actually presenting it, it makes sense to them. So don't be all over the place when you're presenting. Like, have an outline, have a structure, and then follow it. All right. Do we have any last additions to our preparation stage? And then I think we can move on to our application stage of
Yes.
job hunting
Now,
process.
I think we can go for that. Yes.
All right. So I have a very quick lightning question. Just answer quickly. Where did you look for job openings? So I answered earlier, LinkedIn for me, for you, Chi and
Facebook.
Esther.
So friends, so status in the status of a friend. That's where I found the job.
Actually, for me, one thing I learned in Google, I type the site or site the site semicolon, then the name of the site, for example, joblever.com. Then I type the position and location. That's it. All the filter out will be showing under, for example, a UI UX role. Then you will see a list of UI UX role. Um,
Is it like that in the chat? Like site and then position
wait,
and then location. So
I will send on chat.
okay. But yeah, that's a very smart way to go about it so that it's more what do you call this? Parang ano ba? It's more direct. It's not like look like casting a net in a wide field. It's like getting it from a small group of people. And at least it's like more specialized, or you can find but I guess more quality. No, no, not necessarily. But you can just have more variations, I would
Mhm.
like to think. Yeah.
Okay. So thanks everyone. So now our long form question. So I think it's really more on the part where you look at the job offering, you see the company. So what do you look for in a company? How can you discern company culture from the job posting? Or I guess from the job posting itself, like what are red flags to look out for when job hunting? I think we had a lot of laughs when we prepared this question because we did go through a few red flags. But I guess to start, what do you look for in a company? For me, I want to make sure that the company I'm joining is in a field that I want. For example, I purposely wanted to avoid anything to do with Web3. I'm too confused by it. I don't think I can commit to Web3. So I made it a point not to apply for those companies. And the second thing that I looked for in a company was looking at how they phrase their job offerings. So some job postings can be very vague in what they're posting. Like they're saying they need a UX designer, but they're also looking for a graphic designer. They're looking for a multimedia designer. So they seem to be still very confused with what they're looking for, and that was a red flag for me. Like, okay, they don't know what they're doing yet, and I don't think I will have the power, or I don't have the energy to fix
Yes.
it for them. Therefore, I will not apply. um Other things that I was looking for, I did also do, like, I checked the website. Does their website look legit? If yes, okay, that's good. If not, if it looks sketchy, like, is this a real company even though they're on LinkedIn? Maybe not, because
Mm.
I don't know. For me, a website gives me a signal of how professional a company is. even though not all companies really focus on it. And I guess another thing that I look at the people who are inside the company. And there were a few companies where I did actually reach out to people and ask them, hey, how is it like working for X company? And they answered. So sometimes it's really just a matter of asking a question to someone and you'll just be surprised, like, oh my God, they answered. So they have this thing in LinkedIn where you're like look at the company and you see like
The
connections. So
people who's working there,
yeah,
yeah.
some of them were studied in UP where I studied. So okay, hi, I'm also a alumni from UP. You started like that, and then you ask your question. So just find that small connection with the person, and then ask the question. And then if they don't reply, you don't lose anything. If they reply, you gain everything. So what else? What are you find a company in a job posting? I think more of the red flags I can share more in the actual hiring process, but application part, really, it's just discerning if they understand what the role they're looking for in the actual
Yeah,
text. So that's for me.
yeah.
What about you guys?
And yeah, and I do agree that sometimes it's very obvious if the company that's looking for a UI UX designer knows what they're talking about or no. I mean, sometimes there are some companies that do use the UI UX designer title as their job description, and they do sometimes have the actual things that are needed, that are usually done by someone who does UI and UX na designer. Sometimes that does happen, so it's also important to read through the job applications. But um yeah, that's the first red flag. I will just like to repeat, if they're saying they're looking for a UI and UX designer or a product designer, but the roles and responsibilities require you to maybe think about branding or maybe make brochures, social media postings. That's not a UI and UX job. No. They're
Don't
making
do
you
it.
their slave. they're
Don't do
making
it.
you they're like, Papa, come on, make pictures. That's literally what they want you to do. Don't go to those companies. And the more we weed them out, the more that they don't get actual people to apply. Like, hopefully it disappears. Natural selection in the job hunting space. I don't know. I hope that happens because it's so stupid sometimes to see that people still don't understand what our actual job is. But then that still happens because sometimes there are people who do apply to these things because they have no choice. And usually it also doesn't really come with good pay, which is sad. But then that's more of a commentary on the actual industry than the going back to the application process. At least for you, you will know that's not for you. That's not something that you will look into, and you can just leave it be and look for better opportunities. For me personally, the thing that I initially looked for were remote opportunities. And in particular, I did look for companies that would have relocation assistance, because I was also exploring options to work abroad, like literally, like even if it's not remote, like maybe get me there, bring me to wherever, bring me to Europe because I have reasons to be in Europe. But yeah, those are the things that I usually look out for in the compensation and the benefits. For the actual job itself, though, I also look for particular keywords which are related to the things that I do. So if once you've weeded out those do it all designer job applications, and now you start looking for the UX designer, UI designer, product designer roles. Sometimes they also word it in a specific way that they're looking for someone with a particular background. So, for example, I am a designer. I'm a UX designer who is also, I think I would like to say I'm a strong UI designer as well. But my UX is not the best. It's basic. I would like to I would think, because research is not my forte. Do I know how to do it? Other people, it's the other way around. Research is their forte. They like doing all of those documentations. They like doing all of those, asking the people questions, knowing what to ask to get the answers that will be good in like analyzing what they're actually thinking about. There are people whose jobs are really like that, and they're really good at it. And some companies look for people who have that background. Sometimes I do apply for a company still, even if I know from their job application, like this the details that what they're looking for is someone with more research background, with the more research background or more research experience than UI experience. But I do that just to actually confirm if what they're looking for is that, so that at least in my case, I could also just recommend that to other friends who are looking for a job that may fit that bill and may fit the actual need that they're looking for. In other cases, they might say are good at design systems, organizing things, or maybe doing the end-to-end process. That's usually for product designers, because product designers usually do end-to-end designing for a particular product. Um, I realize I'm not sharing any red flags anymore, but just like sharing the things that I would look for. But yeah, those are the things that you could also like watch out for. They're not necessarily red flags, but it also gives you an insight on what kind of person they're looking for, at least. Because sometimes it might, even if the application or the job opening is good, it might not be for you. And sometimes it really is just that. Yeah. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, for me, a red flag is the tools also. I think one of the so almost every day I saw this a Adobe or Photoshop. Then your role is a product designer. So that's one thing I always red flag for me. And in terms of the culture or the company, I'm always looking for the culture and industries that align with my experiences. For example, I work in the fintech, so as much as possible, I want to my experience align with the fintech. If I will go into the, like for example, a agency type, I want to be a project at least holding a fintech. Yeah, almost similar with the key and red.
So we have received one more question regarding the application process from our form, our pre-survey form. So the question is more for those who are now in a more senior role, like principal designer, so not a person handling teams. What are key differences in your responsibilities compared to your last role, and how did you transition and prepare for it? So I think Chi, you wanted to tackle this question.
So, yeah, for more context on my experience as well. So I have been working in as a UX designer, or UX UI product, just in the UX industry for uh 6 years. Yeah, so I'm not like a junior anymore, but I also still don't see myself as someone who's seen a, like of a managerial standpoint, or at least that's what I feel like, because I still very much enjoy doing the actual designs, being hands-on certain things. But sometimes there would be cases where you would um it wouldn't match if you were still doing the entry level jobs with your years of experience. Like, even if maybe let's say you just improve just a little bit over the years, that's still going to be miles away from someone who's starting out from the beginning, and that matters. So you shouldn't look too down, like too like you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, kung that's what you're currently experiencing. And that means that maybe you might be plateauing in your role, and that can be also an indicator that you might need to look for more challenges or another soft skill that you can learn. In my particular case, I went from UI and UX designer, and then I became a product designer. It was I used to use the title lead product designer. By the way, leads titles don't really matter, but then sometimes they do. But then anyway, I'll just put that as an aside. But anyway, so I used to use the title lead product designer because I was really proud that I joined that company. But honestly, the only reason why I was lead was because I was the only designer there. There was no one else.
Design.
So I was like, yeah, I'm
That is
gonna claim
yourself.
it.
Oh
I'm
my
leading
God.
myself. So yeah, I mean, so on that note, what I was doing then was still generally the same with what I was doing in the previous company. But then eventually, my boss did give me some growth challenges, or like they give me some ways to grow as a designer, or as a UXer, I guess I would like to say, because he wanted me to sort of try out product management, because in particular for product management, I liked the aspect of collating and documenting the requirements that were needed for to make a feature. I really like getting into the nitty-gritty, the details for doing a particular thing, what improvements could be done, stuff like that, and then discussing it with the developers, discussing it with the team, figuring out what the best way could be, or what solution we could come up with the problem that we've also defined, like throughout the course of the app, with the work that we were doing. Um, and I did try it out for a bit. Safe to say, I did not really like where I was going. So that was also just me for confirming or figuring out what I wanted to do. Um, but some people also, with I guess with my years of experience, might also start looking for sort of managerial roles. But then I will just say to that, you don't. That doesn't automatically mean that if you're like you have X number of years of experience that you jump to managerial roles after a certain number of years, because being a manager is different from being an individual contributor, and they have their own skill set, um, plus what do you call it, progress bars. Like it's not the same, it's not linear, and I have heard this from both mentors and also from other um, talks in the past that I've attended, and they will also remind you that the career is not necessarily linear in going up. Sometimes it's going to the left, to the right. Sometimes it's lateral. What do you call that? Yeah, like horizontal. You start here and then now you try to go somewhere else. So that in the case of career shifters, that's sometimes also what happens, which is fine, and that is valid, and that is like perfectly like do. Um, yeah. And I guess what the key differences are in my responsibility. So going back to the question, just wanted to share that aspect of my context. By the time that I became a senior product designer, and again, I will say titles don't really matter because that much, but then sometimes they do to a certain extent if the role isn't necessarily like like defined so much. It helps give you a grasp, but then you shouldn't like get head over heels over it, or just like make a big such a big deal out of it when you're in the thing, because what you're doing just like basta clear yung role mo sa'yo. That's the important thing. Um, the key differences when I was senior versus when I was not senior, because I was never a junior designer, I was always just a designer, was I was handling bigger things. When I was not senior, I was working on one thing, though I was working on a lot of one things. And then eventually, when I became senior, all of those one things became the thing that I would be watching over. I wasn't necessarily managing people, it was more of managing all of the bigger scope, how it all connects. Because you would need people that are focused on the one thing, but then you would also need people that are looking at the bigger picture and making sure everything still makes sense and everything still connects. So that was the key difference, at least when I became a senior product designer. Because yeah, sometimes it's like some roles or some titles do have some responsibilities that are attached to them, but then just make sure that it's also clear to you what you're supposed to be doing, that you're either not a manager person, so you don't you're like either people are reporting under you or people are not reporting under you. That needs to be clear. And also what your responsibilities are in the core, in the case of the company products, services, projects, etc. Yeah. I guess I'll pass on the baton to Eric. Sige. What about you? What uh do you have experiences on this, or like thoughts on this particular question?
Yeah, ano.
For ano, wait, inaalala ko tuloy if you like na-experience mo ba siya, or like at least if hindi ikaw, parang yung makikita mo with other people na uh, mapapansin mo na difference between like entry level designers versus like pag nasa mid level ka na versus I guess medyo senior. Parang ano yung what are the usual differences that you notice like within companies or
I
within
think
teams?
more on ano mentoring and yeah, even if you are
Mentoring.
yeah,
Mm.
even you are managerial role or lead, mostly almost mentoring other UA or juniors especially, and most of the time you almost teach them almost what your best practices or even sorry, parang more on ano, tawag dito, kung paano mo sila i-guide mo sila kung yung the way the better to communicate the project or even yung pag design thinking, kumbaga.
Hmm.
And one thing kasi mostly when the junior kasi parang they want to learn pero hindi mo, kahit ako hindi rin ako familiar kung paano ko sila tuturuan. Pero one thing I learned kasi rin is I try to also ask a mentor or find a mentor then
Hmm.
para at least on my work I can help then the others or the juniors especially. But yeah, it's almost same with your said.
Okay. Nice.
Thanks, Chi and Eric. So, I guess we're pressed for time, but we're gonna move on to our next topic, which is the hiring process. So maybe answer this based on your experience, or what are the stages of the hiring process that you went through, and what is expected from an applicant at each stage. So for me, actually, I only really went through like two jobs options at the time. So parang three. Yeah, three. So they were all racing on their own. So for those three jobs, there was an initial interview. One job actually, the initial interview was with the recruiter. So with the recruiter, a lot of the questions were really just gauging on on a more technical level where my skills are at. What's your years of
Hmm.
experience? What do you do? What's your processes? It's very straightforward. Personality doesn't really shine. And then the next interview I would have would be more with like um, maybe a person that I would be working under, or a person in the team that I would be working with, or just someone that I would have high touch points with. That's the next part of the process, I would say. And I feel like for me, this was like the vibe check of the interview. So they're checking me, but I'm also checking them. So
Hmm.
in the job that where I was accepted, it was so funny because my first interview felt like a conversation because we were just chit chatting and it was so nice. That from that moment I was like, okay, I'm getting this job. I know it. And then I eventually did. So that was like a really good vibe check. And if I compared it to like the other two jobs that I was also applying for, it just wasn't there in the sense that I felt like the interviewer was cutting me off, or which is a red flag. If the interviewer doesn't listen to you, no, that's a red flag. Or like another one was I felt like I was giving my rate already. Like he was asking me, which honestly I will talk about this more in the negotiation part. He was really like aggressive on asking me what my rate was. So I gave him a number. And then he suddenly was like, "Ooh, that's high."
Why are you judging?
I'm like, well, it's the value I can give. Why it was so weird. So
Yeah.
I was very put off. But then I was like, okay, let's still give this a chance. Um, because the next part of the interview for me in this the processes was like the what do you call this, design challenge. I forgot to mention as well in the first the interview, I also presented the portfolio that I prepared, which I talked about earlier. So I went through that very quickly because I don't know, they're in a hurry. And then the design challenge, so I went through two design challenges. I think my opinion on design challenges is that they're fine, but my experience was so day and night between these two companies that I applied for that had a design challenge, because one design challenge, it was very specific. They were also honest that it's what they're working on, and they had like a very like an honest brief of what was going on. So I liked the brief because it was clear. And then the other design challenge was literally one slide, create a user persona and then create screens and create a flow, and I'm like, huh, one slide, and I'm like, what the hell? Like
No
that was a red
context.
flag for me,
Yeah.
because it felt like you're asking so much from me, but you barely provided me with any information. So, and they only gave me 3 days. I was like, what the hell is this? What the hell? So from there, I was like, I'm not doing this. So I said, sorry, I got accepted in another job already, even though I wasn't,
Ano I know?
because I just didn't want to do it. I could do it, but then I was like, it's not worth my energy. So I put more of my energy in the other design challenge. In that design challenge, I really gave it my all. I showed them I know how to use components. I really thought about accessibility. I really thought about the form. I really thought, and I also prepared a loom, walking them through everything. And I also had questions. So that's a tip, guys. If you're given a design challenge, always ask questions. It shows that you are not someone who just does things. You actually think things through. And then I would say that the last part, because just the one interview, the job I was really gunning for was the presentation of the design challenge. And then after that, yay, job offer. So really, I would say that when it comes to an interview, be clear and concise. Don't like, if you're gonna stutter, or if you're gonna have a lot of speech filters like ano, like that. It's better to just pause. Like, silence is okay. And then get your bearings. And then I guess another tip would be, if you're still thinking, repeat their question first while you're thinking, and then that gives you some time to think about your answer. But I would say that reflecting prior, like, for example, maybe a question would be, what are your goals, or what are you looking for? You think about that. For me, my goals is to be, um, oh my god, so embarrassing to say, but I told the interviewer that I want to be a world class designer. I want to be able to go on a project and give my best work. That's what I said. And if you're able to really think about these things beforehand, like, or like, what are the things you value, what do you look for in a team, how do you work, if you think about these things prior, the interview becomes really easy, because again, it becomes like a conversation. So that was the hiring process experience for me. So there were some very pleasant experiences where it just felt like a conversation, like with a friend, and really bad ones where I felt like I was being cut off, being disrespected, and being seen as a pixel pusher, which I am not. So that's my experience.
Okay. Yung for that, I do want to add, for I do want to ask Red a question first before I go on into the hiring process. We're in the hiring process right now, right? In the flow of things. Did you get paid for doing the design challenges?
Well,
For the work that you do?
in the design challenge, they were just expecting like a sketch. I
Mm.
just went above and beyond, and when they gave me their offer, woo, above and beyond. So I think it worked out.
Yeah.
But they were very
Okay.
honest in saying you don't have to be like, doesn't have to be comprehensive. You can just
Mm.
be a sketch. We just want to see your thought process. That was what they were gunning for, the thought process. But I
Okay.
really wanted the job, so I
So
gave
you
all of the tricks on my sleeve. I let out.
okay.
It worked.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just asked because it is a thing in the design industry, or like the discussions around job openings and job hunts, that uh in the Philippines, at least I know it's not normal. It's the exception if they do pay you for the work that you do during the application process, because you are technically doing work. Like, I remember back then when I was also hiring, I was helping to hire a co-designer of mine, so I was the only designer in the team. We were looking for another designer with me. I made the design challenge, and it was like a full-fledged end-to-end of the design sprint s kind of thing, that, oh, do research, do wireframes, mockups, prototype, test, feedback, etc. Like, I put that all together, and then we made people do it. We made the applicants do it. Looking back at that experience, the my co-designer who eventually got hired, they did so much work. Like, they went above, like what Red was saying, they went above and beyond. And part of me now, look, like, reflecting on that, made me think, couldn't we have paid them to do it? Because that's what freelancers do, right? Like, I don't know. And then now, fast forward to now, because that's done. That's set and done already, and we've both moved past on that job already. The history. Now I'm like applying for this freelance thing, and every step of the way, they've been giving me like at least some form of compensation for the amount of work that I was doing, which is mostly focused on UI design work. Then I appreciate it, because it's like, oh, okay, I'm technically doing work like during the time that I was unemployed, and I was also applying to for this because I was exploring if I could just do that freelance thing for the meantime, even if it was just part time. I was doing it, and then they would give me like compensation, and then I would get it in like a few days, and then after that, there was a bigger project. They gave me a bigger compensation, so it's like that I appreciated that, and I hope at least like more companies recognize that that is part of the process. Though personally, in my job hunt experience, not all of the jobs that I eventually, like, not all of my jobs now were results of me going through the design challenge. Some definitely was because it was a free, like, it was a free grab, and that's usually the ways that they see what your work is. If you especially if you don't have a ready portfolio, they make you do work. And unfortunately, in the Philippines, it is the norm to not have budget for those things, or at the in the side of the hiring manager, or they don't necessarily think about that. But it's the exchange if you'd like to showcase the work that you do. But then for another role that I did like get hired for, I was just interviewed and I showcased my portfolio. And then from there, that was the vibe check. And then eventually I was given an offer. And then from there they took a chance on me, and I accepted it. So that was, at least that is a thing that still does happen. Not all jobs, or not all job openings for designers might would have a design challenge. Sometimes it does. It does, but then that, yeah, it's because they're looking for a specific thing that you do, or your process is. Yeah. I just also want to call out for the chat. If you have other experiences during about the topics that we're talking about, feel free to share your experience, and then we will read it out. Like, for example, in the hiring process, this is definitely like there are so many things that can happen while in the hiring process. So many bad things as well, and so many good things as well. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say. Okay.
Yeah, just to add with G and Red, one thing I learned with the hiring process, mostly on the interviewing with the lead or team lead, is ask a question that you want to ask, like what the process, what the process, the project, or what is the timeline of the flow, or sabihin natin, parang ano, sabihin na natin na more on alamin mo na kagad kung ano yung mga end-to-end process nila, ano ba yung mga tools na ginagamit nila.
Mm,
And also, I think yung ano din, tawag dito, kung paano mag-work yung team, like how the dynamic with the engineering, with the PM. Also, on the design challenge naman, I think one thing you will need to ask is yung timeline. Kasi, ayan, if ever pwede pa mag-add ng additional days or additional time para lang magkaroon ka ng tawag dito, yung output ng project mo is mapakita mo talaga sa kanila. Yeah. Ayun.
yeah. And for the
Nice.
hiring stage, like it is also important for you to ask questions, like both what Red and Eric are saying. And you don't also have to word it in such a way there are lots of articles online where you can just search on Google questions to ask hiring managers, questions to ask recruiters, then try to paraphrase from that. That's what I always do.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes I can't be bothered to to think about what though sometimes I do have something specific to ask about that so it's very specific to the company. But sometimes when I can't really think about anything, or I'm really just doing the application process of like apply to everything, I don't care. I just want to widen my scope. That's what I did for a while. Uh yeah, sometimes you really just have to ask a question that makes the person talk more.
Mm-hmm.
Like what processes, or what's the end-to-end process of your company, or what's the day in the life of a designer in your team, in your product team, in your ganito ganito team. So yeah, you can go with
Yeah.
that.
My go-to question is, what is a metric, or what are your metrics that you would say you hired the best candidate? Like, what is a successful candidate to you? What good things are
Oh.
you doing that 3 months in, 6 months in, 1 year in? And they're kind of, it's kind of like, they're showing you what their expectations are, and you can kind of gauge, ah, yeah, I can do that. So that's my go-to question, just para may matanong, and it's always a good question.
It's like you're flipping the interview on them now. Now you're
Yeah,
going like, oh, what are you looking for?
yeah, I
Nice.
choose char. So, do we want to share anything more about the hiring process, or do we move on to the? Oh wait, actually, did you guys ever go through a whiteboarding challenge or anything like that? I never actually experienced it.
I've also not gone through a whiteboarding challenge. A design challenge though, I did. Like I had to make UI screens for a particular because for a particular need they were looking for the skill set. Like if you were naming your layers, or if you were using components or using styles or whatever, or using what you were doing. Like for example in Figma, but
Mhm.
never gone through a whiteboarding challenge. Though I have applied to places where that was something that they were saying could happen or could be done, but I never reached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. But before I think I experienced one time like uh it's not a whiteboard day. It's more on sketching a solution and you will present it. But yeah, not totally a whiteboard challenge kasi alam ko parang iba yung whiteboard challenge pa eh. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm quite nervous to experience my first whiteboarding challenge because I've never done it.
Yeah, actually ayun,
But
isang experience ko rin kasi doon is ano siya, physical. Talagang doon ako sa
Like in person.
oo, nag-sketch
Uh,
oh,
ako, I present it, tapos sabi niya, "Bakit ganun naging solution mo?" Yun lang, parang
mm,
bina-validate lang nila yung idea mo or yung sketch mo, bakit naging gano'n. Yeah, pero it was fun, pero yun nga, parang nakaka-pressure kasi kailangan mong pakita talaga sa kanila kung kailangan ba pixel perfect ba o hindi, parang gano'n.
mm.
Yeah,
Pixel perfect to sa whiteboard. Let me just get my ruler. And
yeah,
I will do that.
but basically ang gusto lang talaga nilang makita is yung how you think faster on
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
on interview. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say maybe when you're interviewing or presenting anything, I think the things that they look out for are like your skills as a designer. So that includes like, how do you think about accessibility? How do you think about future proofing your designs? How do you think about hand off? How do you think about edge cases? How do you consider all of that in design? So the more that you can, it also, I guess, comes with experience, that these things that you're saying, it comes naturally to you. I would also say that the more that you read into like all of the online resources that are there, books, you'll just be surprised at how your mind is a sponge, and I know that because I read this. So that was very helpful for me in my job search, actually.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, no hiring process.
Hiring.
We can move
Yes.
on to the
Let's
last
now
part. Oh
Let's
my
now get
goodness.
into the nitty-gritty of actually getting to the table. Let's put
Okay,
down the
so let's picture this. Everything went well already, and now they are offering you a role. But they're also talking about the compensation package. So, for you guys, how did you negotiate your role, the things that you do, and the compensation package when you reached that stage? Um, Siguro if I'm gonna start, I only reached it in one company because I thwarted the other one, and the other one was still ongoing. But
Wait, can I just say for what you did of like essentially not saying the truth
yeah,
to the other company, it's also fine to just go like I'm not pursuing this application anymore. Because I've done that as well. Like I've done that with another company that actually did have my personal like number. It was kind of weird because they were doing things in Telegram instead of the usual things. So yeah, it was a very weird application process, and I kind of soft blocked them already because I was very scared. I
what the
was
heck?
like, I don't want you to be in my personal spaces. But yeah, it's fine to also like since we can also do that as applicants.
Next time, next
Yeah, I will. I don't want to pursue this application anymore. Thank you. You don't even have to explain. You don't have to explain your reasoning on why you do things. Sometimes
time.
you don't really have to say it. It's not needed. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry,
Oh,
going back
anyway,
to the
yeah.
negotiation.
Well, some company though, they really like, what is
It was
this?
weird. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. I
why, oh my god, I'm not
understand.
doing this. But anyway, in the company that I did like, I also what I know about negotiating. Um, the thing that you know is that they are hiring, therefore they should know their budget. So I
Mm.
during the initial interview I did actually ask, so what is your budget? But then the way they answered was, oh, we're still trying, this is the first time we'll have this kind of role, so we're still trying to figure it out. So I was like, oh,
You were
okay,
put on the spot.
I'll get back to you on my number because I didn't want to give it yet. So for context, this was an Australian company, so not local. So their numbers are different. So I was
Mm.
like, oh my god, I don't want to lowball myself. I was actually messaging Chi and Eric. How do I handle this? I don't know.
So that
I
was
was
live.
like, huh?
That was live. That
No, it
was
wasn't
like
live. It was via
okay,
email at this point.
okay,
So
okay, okay,
so
okay.
that's good. At least, God, I don't think I can like panic chat while I'm talking with you guys. I'm talking with the interviewer. But anyway, I also messaged another mentor. I was like, "Hi, do you have any tips on how I can answer this?" And all she said was like, "Oh, I have a video for this," and she did have a video for it. And then I'll send it here in the chat later. I'll look for the video. So essentially, the video was reinforcing that I should ask the question that they have a budget for this. What's their budget? So
Ah,
he gave me a specific text. The question is, hi, I'd like to, since this is an approved role, what's your budget? What's your budget for this approved role? Like really focusing on that approved role. So I sent that via email, and then she replied back with their compensation package, and it was shooting above what I was shooting for. So I was like, oh my
like
god, I
what you were
almost
expecting.
lowballed myself.
Oh my god.
So there wasn't much of a negotiation. That was it. They gave me their number, and I was like, "That's it. That's a good number. Agree." Then, yay, job offer! I don't know. My job hunting experience was pleasant because I found that company. Thank God. So that's for me with regards to negotiation. I'm going to send in chat the video I used
Okay.
to get
Yeah.
that pleasing number.
Yeah. On my end, just to back an experience before pre-pandemic, I had two job offers. Like there was this first job offer. They were looking for me to answer like within a week. It was a rush hire, urgent hire. That was very uso back in the day. I mean until now, but then people have more leeway now to actually to not cave in into the we need your answer by tomorrow because why you don't have to give like, you can ask to then give more time because it does take time to think about the thing that will be your job for the next month, years, like like you can't just rush that thing, like god. So Anyway, going back, there was so I had a job offer, one job offer, and then I had another job offer with the thing that I was actually targeting. Um and they gave me a job offer, like they had the amount already, like in the that in that paper. And then I was like, "Oh, cuz I have this other job offer that's like essentially it was a bit higher than the thing that was put there, and they're also looking for to give me an answer." Like I was kind of playing the game of being like strategic about it. I wasn't lying because that's also the thing about me personally. I don't think I find it very uncomfortable to lie about things that I'm very sure about myself. If I'm not sure about something, it's fine. But if I know what I'm looking for, I know what I need, and I try to get something either higher than that or something, or something different, I find it difficult to say it with confidence. So I need that actual experience of like, oh, there is an actual company that's offering me something else that is higher than what this is, than what this is, so I can be more confident in what I'm doing. Maybe in the future I could just psyops myself, like mind game myself into thinking, oh yeah, I do have a job offer in another company that's like 200% higher than this current, even though it doesn't exist. I don't think I can do that yet. But sometimes other people do that. But uh also be careful because some recruiters and some hiring managers can also see through bullshit. So that's just gonna be the blanket warning over that. But yeah, what I did was I essentially just mentioned that I did have other offers on the table. Or if you don't want to mention specific numbers and you just want to try to wait it out a bit, you could also just say considering a lot of other options. You don't have to say job offers because sometimes it's also not the job offer that you're considering. Maybe sometimes it's you taking a break. Maybe it's starting a company. Maybe it's going freelance or something. So, there's so many things that people are doing, and sometimes you have to think about if you want to be tied to a company for X number of years. Case, that's full time. And other companies usually are, or generally, I hope other companies really are understanding. But then you also do have to understand on their end, they are at they have their SLAs, they have their needs that they need to have someone by this date. Maybe if they did that too late, but then also like try to find that in your conversations with the hiring manager. At least that's something that I tried to do with another job where I was like, okay, I'm happy that I have this job offer. And then I wanted to wait for the other companies that I did apply for and to see if they did offer me a job or if it's not. So I did tell the company that gave me the offer that, can you give me more time to think about it, or like I need a week or something. Like I was going like that, and they were like, okay, sure. But then sometimes other hiring managers or other companies would give a date. You could just really try to ask and negotiate for that date. And you could also say, for example, sometimes the benefits or negotiating compensation is not usually it can also be not in the form of money. It can also be in the form of benefits. So for example, in the case of remote work, are you given internet allowance, grocery allowance, ano ba, uh, peripherals allowance, because sometimes if they don't provide you with a work laptop or a work machine, can they fund you to get you your own or something? I'm not sure how that works because I've always had a work laptop, but then for other friends, I do know that some of them do get some kind of allowance for that they can upgrade their own systems at home because they do work remote first, those things. And maybe also flexi time or dependence, depending, it depends on what your goals are, or what you really need at the time. Sometimes you want stability, so you want to make sure that they all pay the government benefits, and then some. So also covering maybe more of your family members if you're that type of person that does live with a lot of family members who are not your immediate parents, maybe like grandparents or something, or maybe you're looking for mental health services, and that could just adjust the number quite a bit depending on the need. But the important thing is to at least try and ask. It's hard, but there are templates online that you can use. You can also use ChatGPT to ask to help you form some template questions and fix it for you, like put it, contextualize it for yourself. Then just also maybe practice with the friend, practice with the mentor, in asking these questions so that you feel more comfortable in actually doing it. Because if you're doing it for the first time, it is nerve wracking. People say that you should ask questions, like we're telling you right now, you should ask questions, you should negotiate, but then you don't know how. So how do you fix that? You practice, and it's fine if you practice with a friend. Just ask them, hey, can we do a you, or maybe can you give me some info, like some questions, and then I will answer it like seriously. Don't joke about it. It's an actual thing that you just do, and sometimes it helps because it puts you in that mindset, puts you in the correct mindset for this particular task. Yeah. Okay. I'm done with what I was saying.
Yeah, to add, actually, one of the previously I always doing at least a range salary. For example,
Mm,
may asking is this. Example lang, 300 or 30K. And
mm,
then you will say at this range for sabi natin, additional 20 or 20 or 50% of your current, like sabi, 30K, so magiging 60K.
50 to
And then
60K.
uh, bibigay ako ng range from 60K to 80K. At least yung
Mm. Ah,
pinaka-lowest is nandun safe ka na para at least
mm-mm.
may idea pa rin
It's
sila
fine.
na parang hindi namin kaya yung nasa higher mo. Okay lang ba yung sa lower? At least safe ko pa rin na ano kasi yung binigay mo yung lowest is ayun yung talagang expected value mo na. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. To add to that range thing, usually people do advise that if you're looking for a number, like if you're looking for an asking, compute whatever it is, or find out what you're comfortable with getting, and then add 30%. Cause and then when you're negotiating, get that number with the plus 30%, and then use that as the minimum, and then add some. That's hard to do though. I personally don't follow this advice all the time because I am scared. Because again, going back to my, yeah, and also inflation. You also have to account for inflation. Stuff is expensive now. It's not tens, 2000s. My God, like don't listen to the people who say, "Ah, you're so expensive." I mean, my God, things are expensive. What the hell do you think I'm doing? I'm trying to live. But yeah, so yeah, that's the general advice for the number range. Uh, at least if you can afford to negotiate that number. Sometimes you can't, but then when you can, do that.
All right. So, I think we'll answer just one thing. Na what are things we consider when looking at a job? I kind of went through it, but I guess this is more of a personal question. Answering this, guys. If you have more questions, siguro we can answer a few via chat na lang kung hindi kaya, or if you guys want to stay later. Um, so I'll give you guys time to write your question, or maybe we can answer this.
I do wanna answer this question. What advice by Regine? What advice can you give to someone who wants to be a mentor in time but doesn't have enough confidence to speak or communicate? Preferably step by step. How did you start? So that is something I personally don't know how to say the beginning, but then I guess it could start with the innate want to help someone. And it doesn't have to be structured. It doesn't always have to be mentor mentee, the student teacher, boss, an underling kind of level. It just can be through friends. It can be That's how I've found my mentors in the past, as They were in the form of friends. They were people who were in the industry longer than me, and I just happened to be there and happened to ask questions to them, ask them about hey, what did you do for this particular thing, and then they would give me an answer because it's really also a conversation. So I think in that case, if you don't have any to speak or communicate, I guess, to other people, like to people you don't know, it could help to start with people that you know, people that are close to you, your friends. That usually helps as a starting point because, I mean, you don't and if you have like friends that can take this seriously with you, then they are also good friends to keep. That also is like a friend filter because they understand that you have to go through this, and that you can also help them in return. Like you can do an exchange in that case. Um, in terms of mentoring specifically, like if you're trying to teach someone something, you really just also have to keep doing it. That just try to write something down, and then after like teaching someone, also ask them feedback. Did I do well? Did I do? What can I do to improve? What did I not do well? Stuff like that. So it's also that feedback loop that's important when you're trying to improve in general.
Mm-hmm.
For sorry, I'm I lost the train of thought. I wanted to say something else, but I lost it right now. But then yeah, go ahead if you wanted to add on top of that.
Yeah, to add in like building your confidence. For me, I think when I started in the design, I was kind of starting from scratch. I didn't know anyone in the industry, and that's why I volunteered for Friends of Figma. So we organize a lot of events, and I also join a lot of other volunteer things. And eventually, people do reach out to you to hold like workshops, events, and things like that. And when they come to you, you just say yes. And I think volunteering is really one of the quickest ways to be more confident in you and
Yeah,
as a
it puts you
designer.
out there.
Yeah, it puts you out there, it connects you with several people, and you have an opportunity to talk about the things that you want to learn. So step by step, it's unti-untiin mo on how you're going to do it because there's no shortcut. It's really just rough. Um, Little by little exposing yourself to talking more and more and more. And maybe if you have trouble doing that, you start with an outline first and you follow that outline just to make sure that your train of thought is not all over the place because you already thought about what you were going to say prior. So that's my tip on gaining confidence in speaking.
There
Yeah,
was
and be
another
yourself din.
question. Oh,
Kasi
sorry.
ano naman yan tawag dito, it's okay to fail and normal lang yun.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
accept
true.
or wala namang mangyayari kung mag-fail ka or it's a lesson. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
We have
it
another
happens.
question.
Yeah. So okay. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, so from Hannah, how do you leverage your 3 years of experience in design and not be treated with the usual fresh grad rates when talking about salary expectations? I think I can answer this one a little bit because I also have 3 years of experience. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
question for
I
you.
was I was able to shoot past the fresh grad rates. I think it's a few things to consider. Number one, if you're applying for a role in the Philippines, I think your chances of success are a lot lower just because I don't know. I feel like design maturity in the Philippines as well as ability to pay is not as high in the Philippines if you compare it to the other countries who have a higher capacity of paying designers. Also, I guess it also comes with confidence and how you present yourself during the hiring process, like really showing that you know what you're talking about. Um, that's also why, earlier I was talking about the design challenge. I gave it my all because I knew it was an abroad country, it was a remote job, it was a good team. So, um, all of the tricks up my sleeve, I really use just to show that I am the senior product designer that they are looking for. And then it did work out. What else to be treated with the usual? It also depends on you if you can also see in a job posting or like the company culture, because you can ask around that how they treat their designers. Don't give it your time of day anymore, because you're trying to go beyond what that company is offering, because you know you can offer more. So it's really also about expanding your network, or like your horizon on what you can offer and do for maybe other opportunities out there, because I really do believe that the company the company that you're looking for is also looking for you. Yeah.
Mm,
So
yeah,
that's
and
what I think.
yeah, I agree to a certain like to that note, because there are definitely a lot more experiences or sorry, opportunities out there that me really may not be for you, but it's just really what you see or what you have to go through to get to the better experience, to the better opportunity. In terms of leveraging yung you're not a fresh grad, but you're still kind of young. Yeah, you can tap into your other skills, like your other soft skills, because design is not all that it is. Like you are a person who's not just a designer, you are also someone else. Blah 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 blah. You can do all of that things. So in my case, I did leverage that with community building, with the experience of organizing events, since before I was also active with uh, groups like UXPH other than Friends of Figma Philippines. That was what I made use of, other than back then also knowing how to code, as my leverage for being like, hey, I'm someone who actually listens to the trends, because I'm part of the people who talk about the trends to other people, or to learn from other people, meeting other people in person or talking to them, really discussing the things, not just being like, oh yeah, I know design, I know how to make things pretty. It's like, you're not superficial, you actually know your shit, so, essentially. So you could use that, or if for example particular thing that you're not really sure is related to design, but then you're really good at that thing, you can use that as well as your leverage. You're a designer and whatever that is. So whether it be within an industry that you want to get into, uh, or it's another skill that you have, like in the case of Red, for example, like she's a communications, tama diba? Communications graduate.
Mm-hmm.
She leverages that so well. Other people who do, like other people who career shift are psychology graduates, for example, or maybe not even entirely like related to their degree, but they're really good at organizing documentation. They could also showcase that, or find ways to showcase that, and say that this is what I'm really good at, or something else. I can't really think of any other things other than documentation, because that's the thing that I've been bugging about for today. But there are things you can use, your other things, like your other skills, your other interests as your leverage. And I guess on that note, to put this to go to us with a step, uh also just don't make design your personality. There's more to design than there's more to life than being a
Such some
designer.
grass.
Yeah. So it's okay to explore side projects, other things that are not related to UX and not related to, the industry. If really that's what you want to do. If what you want to do is evangelize for design, then go for it. Then make that your thing, and make it your whole life, what you breathe, live, like eat and breathe and something. But if not, then you can use your uniqueness as a person as your leverage. And the next step there is to make sure you present it in a way that companies would be able to see it. Then the next challenge for that is to find companies that appreciate who you are and what you are and what you can give. Because sometimes there are not a lot of companies that can appreciate it. So, yun. I guess that's to answer the question. Eric, ikaw.
Yeah, to add actually is one of I think you practice and practice. For example, if you are want to improve your skill in the UI, practice on the UI, and if you want to focus on more on storytelling or presenting your design, practice it. And yeah, and possible na pwede naman.
Okay. Right.
All right. Do we have any other questions na maybe other people wanna habol,
Yeah,
even though we're
it's
over
nine.
time.
Yeah, it's 9:05 for a time check for people. But yeah, uh, while people may you can we're gonna leave a few more minutes to ask questions. Maybe we can answer maybe one more. And also I guess just to share what Red typed in the chat. We are also looking for volunteers. We are if you want to make use of community building as your skill, we're here. We can help you. Help us so that we can help you.
Help each other and help
And
everyone.
apply like we need help to organize these things because work is work and sometimes it eats up a lot of our time. So and we still want to have these events, these opportunities to talk about the things that we normally don't get to talk about sometimes, like with like-minded people. So this helps. You can help. Okay, I guess
No more questions.
from the looks of things. So yeah, the link is in the chat. Feel free to fill it up, and you'll be able to talk with any of us, and then we're going to also maybe introduce you. Like eventually, it can also bring you to talk to people in Figma because we are connected to Figma. So sometimes it's hard to get Europeans to reply, but or foreigners to reply, but sometimes they do, and there is they are more receptive, at least like on Twitter or in, like in Discord, because there is a Friends of Figma Discord. Yeah. I will read out what Andy Santos said. If there's one thing I picked up from design talks, a lot of emphasis is placed on getting involved in the design community in some way, even by attending events like these. Hehe. Yes, and I agree. Sometimes it's also good to just mention least like before when there were a lot more conferences, design conferences, you can also mention that you attended so and so conference, attended so and so workshop. You could also add that to your resume. And then you could also use the actual time that you're in that conference to network with people, connect with them. Maybe not look for a job right then and there, but get people that can eventually get you to be visible to people who are looking for people like you. Yes.
For me, my ulterior motive when I joined Friends of Figma Philippines, I had an ulterior motive. It was to connect with designers. Because again, I started like, I don't know anyone. And now, because of Friends of Figma Philippines, like I have a very good reason to connect with designers. I'd be like, hi, I'm a volunteer here. Would you be interested to talk about this? So I was able to expand my network a lot more because of my excuse. And it works out. I do enjoy what we do. So,
I'm happy it works out for you and that it has nag-ROI ka na.
symbiotic relationship, you know? So, for the people that this was the first design event talk that they attended, well, so happy to hear that you enjoyed it. We hope to see you in more. Or if you want to be a volunteer, yes.
Yeah, this is the way to go. You can start here. Yeah. I guess in that case, so it's 9:08. That's not I guess people it's a Friday. Let's give the Friday back and let
Yeah,
us
thank
rest
you
for a bit.
guys.
This is recorded anyway. We will be posting this on YouTube. If you don't know yet, we have Friends of Figma Philippines YouTube channel. So you can like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon. Joke lang. My God. Okay. But yeah, it is there. If you want to look back at this, if you want to remember what we talked about during this once you're going through your job hunt, this can hopefully this helps you in some way.
Mm-hmm. We'll
Okay?
also make sure to share all of the links and all of the chat tips that were shared in the YouTube video as well as the Facebook group that we have. So
Mm.
keep posted on those resources. So okay, Eric, do you have any last words?
Yeah, thank you for attending, everyone.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you everyone. Happy
I'm gonna stop.
Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone. Let me just stop the
All
recording.
right. Go lang. Sige.